Welcome back to The Haunted Beard, everybody. Thank you for joining me. Today, I want to give you my review for Love Lies Bleeding. This is one of my most anticipated movies of the year. This is director Rose Glass's follow-up to the film Saint Maud, which was my favorite film of the year it came out. I can't remember if that was 2019, 2020, something like that. But anyways, I was very much looking forward to this. Now, I'm going to keep my review spoiler-free until the end. So I particularly want to reserve a little bit of this review in talking specifically about the ending. But I'll keep the rest of the review spoiler-free, and I'll be sure to warn you once I get to the spoiler section. So let's get into this thing. So Saint Maud was more of a psychological horror film, and now with Love Lies Bleeding, you've got more of a kind of crime thriller type movie. But having completed now her second feature-length film, you were really starting to be able to see some of Rose Glass's directing style start to emerge and develop. She just does some good stuff with like slow motion and really kind of, I don't know, heightening and capturing this sort of mood and atmosphere through some of the slow motion stuff that I think works really well. And that's now we've seen in both Saint Maud and now this film. One of the things that you can tell she's very passionate about are characters. With both of these films now, just very focused on characters, character-driven films, and particularly more focusing on relationships and just interesting, complicated, dark relationships that develop between the main characters. And so not only is Rose Glass proving to be a really solid director, but also a really good writer, as she is able to, again, create just some really interesting characters and interesting relationships. The performances here are also really solid as well. Kristen Stewart and Katy O'Brian play Lulu and Jackie. Ed Harris is also really good as well. He plays Kristen Stewart's dad, just a really creepy, kind of off-putting and a little bit scary performance, but also really good as well. It definitely stands out. But yeah, their characters, Stewart and O'Brien, are the main driving force of the film. And I like the world that Rose Glass puts on the screen. Just this picture of the kind of dark underbelly of society where you've got just this kind of, you know, this dark crime type story, which also has this element of romance in it. And then you fill it with these two characters who are just these kind of broken, tragic figures with sort of messed up backgrounds and messed up pasts. And they're these two people who have kind of these messed up, crazy, you know, lives that are kind of in chaos and in turmoil and unpredictable, but they're just trying to find something good in the world. They're trying to find some amount of happiness and joy and love to just get through their lives. And these two girls find each other. But you know, given the type of world that they live in and given the type of characters that they are, this is probably going to be a recipe that ends in something dark or tragic or disastrous. And so I just really like that whole type of setup, that whole recipe. It all just kind of works together really good. And I just totally thoroughly enjoyed that whole element and that type of presentation to the movie. This is a film that I feel like you can tell has been influenced a little bit by the Coen brothers, specifically their films like Blood Simple and Fargo and stuff like that. I would certainly imagine that Glass was influenced, at least to some degree, by those types of movies and those style of movies. Both of those are great films, so if you like those movies, I think you'll definitely like this. And another element that appears in both of these movies now is that Rose Glass likes to inject a little bit of surrealism into her movies. And so there's a tiny bit of a David Lynch vibe almost in this film, which I will never complain about. But I'm going to get into that a little bit more when I discuss the ending of the movie. One of the other highlights of the film is the music. The music here is fantastic, and I often don't really have a whole lot to say about music. Either it's just one of those things to where I just kind of feel it. It either works and fits the film or it doesn't. And the music just fits. It just works really well. It was composed or conducted by Clint Mansell, who is the composer on, I think, one of the best film scores of all time, which is Requiem for a Dream. And there are some similar vibes between that score and this score. So I love the score. I thought it just fit the atmosphere and the vibes of the movie really well and just complemented it. I thought it just worked, and I really enjoyed it. I also thought the pacing of the film was really good as well. It kind of knows how to handle the ups and downs. And the first 20 minutes or so of the movie really moves by really fast and introduces you to really all the main characters that you need to know. It kind of gives you a good understanding and establishes who they are and their sort of connection or their relationship to the other people in the movie. It all unfolds in a really natural and unforced way to where you feel like you just get to know who everybody is, and you kind of know the pieces are all set in place. And so I really liked how the opening kind of introduction part of the movie is handled in terms of the pacing of it. It moves really quick. But then the film kind of shifts gears a little bit, and for the next good chunk of the movie, it really kind of turns into a romance, kind of a darker romance that's largely focused on Stewart and O'Brien's relationship. And that's where the movie kind of has some time to breathe. And it kind of slows down a little bit and just really sort of establishes their characters, develops their relationship and stuff like that. And then once you get into the latter half of the film, is the movie kind of executes some of the slow burn elements really well, and just kind of builds some tension and builds suspense as it moves towards the climax. So I thought just the pacing in the film was handled really well. I also thought how Rose Glass handles the violence in this movie was just really well done. She knows how to shoot brutal violence, and there are two scenes in particular. But man, they pack a punch, okay? They leave an impact. They're just very well done. They're brutal, they're bloody, they're violent, and they leave a mark, and just really well executed, both of those scenes. All right, so we've reached the part in the review where I now am going to get into spoilers and particularly want to talk about the ending. So you have been officially warned. If you haven't seen this movie yet, I definitely am giving it a recommendation. I thought it was pretty solid, but I do have some mixed feelings and thoughts on the ending, so I'm going to get into it. If you don't want to know the ending, skip to this time, and I'll give you the final grade, and there we go. So, you have been warned, here we go. So, I love how the film builds to the climax. I think there's just some real solid executed tension. You can just kind of feel the pot boiling over, so to speak. I just really like that slow burn and how it just ratchets it up to the climax. Just really well done. Real quick, I have to mention too, there's the scene towards the end of the movie where Kristen Stewart has the phone call with her dad. And, he's like, what are you going to do? Call the FBI? And she's just like, yup, that's what I'm going to do. That's a great scene. I love that scene. But anyways, the film obviously builds to the climax to where Ed Harris has Katy O'Brian captured at the house. Kristen Stewart comes along to save her. She frees her. They kind of have their little moment where Katy O'Brian thinks that Kristen Stewart came to kill her, so to speak. But they kiss and make up. They tell each other they love each other. And Kristen Stewart's like, all right, I'm going to go take care of my dad. You just get to safety. And so she goes to talk to her dad. Her dad shoots her in the leg. And Katy O'Brian hears it. And she can hear Kristen Stewart screams, and she's, crying out in pain and all that stuff. And Katy O'Brian, turns into basically the Incredible Hulk. And she walks over there, turns into this gigantic beast, and pulls Ed Harris off of Kristen Stewart, pins him down to the ground, and then they basically run off with the police getting ready to arrive. And then you get the final scene, which I'll talk about in just a second. This was definitely an interesting and certainly an unexpected choice. And this is where Glass really, enters into the surreal territory. And when I was watching it, my initial reaction, I was sitting there and, she turns into this gigantic Hulk of a person. She's 20 feet tall. And I was sitting there and I was just like, what the heck was that? It just felt so completely out of nowhere. And here's the thing. I'm somebody, for me personally, I will always, champion directors doing something ambitious swinging for the fences, just doing something different and not just playing it safe or going the traditional route. Even if it's a total swing and a miss, I at least just want to see the attempt. And so there is an aspect of this that I totally appreciate and greatly respect. And I love that Rose Glass goes into surreal territory. I want that. I like it. I think it's great. Please keep doing it. I don't know that it totally works or lands here. And here's the reason. So there are some surreal elements in Saint Maud. I feel like those surreal elements fit the film, in Saint Maud's case, a little bit better because they're kind of peppered throughout the movie, so it's been a part of the film's presentation. And also there's a very clear psychological element to that movie, to where you're seeing things through Maud's perspective and you understand that this is a person who is deeply troubled and mentally disturbed. And so the surreal stuff kind of makes more sense. Whereas in Love Lies Bleeding, you have a little bit different of a situation because there's not that clear psychological element, and there hasn't really been any sort of surreal stuff throughout the rest of the movie. And so it kind of just feels forced, and it just sort of comes out of nowhere, and it just doesn't really fit within the rest of the context of the movie. Now, in regards to how I interpret it, or what I thought Rose Glass was kind of going for, was this. You know, they had that moment on the tennis court where they said they loved each other. And to me, that was kind of like the moment that like their love was true and it was strong and it could withstand anything. And so it was like they sort of formed this like special connection. And so when Kristen Stewart was in pain, got shot in the leg, you know, Katy O'Brian could just like feel that in her being. Like there's this connection between them. She knew that her loved one was in pain. And that turned her into something superhero-like. And so in a way, you know, she becomes the savior. She becomes the superhero. She turns into the protector who is there to protect and make sure that Kristen Stewart is safe. Now, I guess in some way you could interpret it that that's not something that literally happened. What literally happened was Katy O'Brian came back and beat the crap out of Ed Harris, and so they were able to escape, right? She didn't actually turn into a Hulk monster, but that was just kind of how Kristen Stewart saw it. Like, that was her perspective. That's how she sees Katy O'Brian, as this big Hulk superhero, her protector, and the person who keeps her safe sort of thing. So I guess that's kind of how I interpret it. I'm very curious to hear how you might interpret it, but that's what I got out of it. Now, regarding the final scene, you know, they make the getaway. They're driving to who knows where. They still got the body in the bed of their truck. And they pull over. Kristen Stewart pulls the body. She chokes the body because the girl's still alive and kills her, and then pulls the body out into the desert, and then credits roll. And the film, it kind of has a bit of a cliffhanger ending, because at least from how I understood it, Ed Harris, they didn't kill him. So he most likely got arrested by the police. And I would certainly imagine he has enough evidence to cause the police to go after the two girls. That, like, you know, hey, my daughter is one who killed one of the guys in the bottom of the pit. And then Ed Harris knows that Katy O'Brian shot the other girl, and so there's that body to worry about as well. And so the movie just kind of ends, and they're just on the run, I guess. Like, there's definitely no happily ever after by any means. And so it feels like it's a bit of a cliffhanger. But I will say, though, I loved the final shot. Just that image of Katy O'Brian in the truck sleeping against the window, and then Kristen Stewart in the background pulling a dead body into the desert. I just thought, like, that is the perfect image that, like, totally, you know, captures the essence of this film and these two girls' relationship and the journey that they've been on. Like, it's that picture right there. I just thought that was a great image to end the movie. So anyways, those are my thoughts on the ending. I'm a little mixed on it. I really do appreciate the attempt. It doesn't quite land for me fully, but again, I still just appreciate the ambition of it. So overall, still a fan of this film, still thought it was really quite solid. Didn't like it quite as much as I did Saint Maud, but still, Rose Glass is somebody that I'm definitely keeping my eye on. She is extremely talented, not only as a director, but also as a writer. I'll definitely be looking forward to seeing what she does next. So overall, I'm close to an 8 out of 10 on this one. I don't know if I'm quite there, so I'm going to give it a solid 7.5, but I'm close to an 8. So somewhere right in there is kind of my overall grade for this thing. So anyways, yeah, those are my thoughts. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts down below, what you thought of Love Lies Bleeding. Would love to hear from you. That's all I got for you. Thank you so much for watching. If you got anything out of this video, go ahead and do me a favor and do not click that subscribe button unless you want to be haunted by the beard.